So once again, warm welcome to Inner Fitness. Our theme today is putting a spring into your step, and we will start with meditation. So I'm going to invite you to be seated comfortably, and if you want to experiment with eyes open, you're welcome to. And feel free to take a moment to really settle the body into the space, perhaps taking a breath in. And as the air is slowly released from the lungs, feeling that it helps the body to relax, to let go as well. And then perhaps another natural breath in, and that slow release of air from the lungs, feeling like it's slowing everything down, helping the body to really settle into the space. And then letting the breath continue naturally, automatically on its own. And drawing my focus upwards from the breath of the body to that place behind the forehead where there's a lot of activity. It's not a space with physical dimensions. It feels like an unlimited space, my inner world. And that invisible activity of thinking, observing, remembering, experiencing. It's a very powerful space, my inner world. Sometimes we give a lot of power to what is going on outside, but it's in fact my own thoughts, my own attitudes that hold tremendous power. Every thought I create leads to a feeling. Bringing my mind, my thoughts, my attention completely into the present moment, as if time has stopped and only this moment exists. Observing my mind right at this moment. What are my thoughts? And what feelings do they create? I just observe, observing my own thoughts and what feelings they create. Harnessing that power of thoughts, the power of the mind. I create thoughts about stepping outside the rhythm of day-to-day life. The ordinary or habituated thoughts around different activities, different roles, different responsibilities, thoughts about past or future, the thoughts I seem to create all the time. I step outside of the ordinary, the habituated, and I step into the sacred, the unique, the timeless. Thoughts about what is timeless. Everything of the physical is temporary. It comes and goes. The timeless realm belongs to what is not physical, the spiritual. Timeless thoughts about myself, not in any way physical, but thoughts about me, the being, the one who is thinking at this moment. I am like a traveler through time. Even this body around me changes over time. And feeling I am distinct. I express through this body, but I don't need this body to exist. On the contrary, it needs me. I am the life in this body, this wonderful thing called life, valuable beyond measure. I am a tiny spark of life. This is a sacred thought about the self. Is there anything more valuable than life? And how do these sacred thoughts make me feel? This is my experiment today. The connection between thoughts and how they make me feel. Do they give energy or take? Lift me up or weigh me down? The power of my own thoughts. Om Shanti. So warm welcome again in honor of tomorrow being spring equinox. Our theme is putting a spring into your step. So first off, I don't know if souls have heard this saying. We don't use it much. But what exactly does it mean? What does it mean to you when you hear, I'm going to put a spring into my step? What does that mean? Does it mean I'm getting an operation? What does it mean? Again, you can use the chat or unmute or whatever. Send me something, a message telepathically, whatever way you wish to communicate. Sorry. What does it mean to put a spring into my step?
There's a feeling of lightness or joy or enthusiasm when you're walking or moving, injecting that into your, we say step, but it's, in your actions.
So lightness, joy, enthusiasm in your activity. We have beautiful responses here, introducing freshness or newness and extra bounce of positive energy and joy. So it looks like everyone's very familiar with what this idea means. It's funny in a fitness class, especially if it's a high intensity interval training or something crazy like this, and there comes a point when you're feeling a little bit low in energy, you've been going for a while, and I enjoy experimenting with how can I energize myself. The instructor will say, you have 15 more seconds, and then it's over. So how can I kind of energize myself to take the full benefit of those last 15 seconds? It's very interesting. So you know what it means. The question is how? How do I put a spring into my step? How do I energize myself, this positive energy? How do I energize? And I appreciate that it was shared positive energy, because yes, there could be this idea of negative energy too. So very specifically, positive energy, which does give us that bounce. How do I do that? How do I put a spring into my step? Metaphorically speaking, I may not go skipping down the street. Maybe a do or die attitude for those last 15 seconds. It's true. One of my favorite cues is, okay, at the end of these 15 seconds, you don't want any regrets. You want to know you gave it all you got. No regrets. So that's kind of my attitude as I go into those. And then if the instructor's lying, haha, I lied. You have 15 more. I want to kill them. So then it's their do or die. So yes, no regrets. It's a very powerful attitude. No regrets, which suggests that we are aware of, at some degree, of our potential. And how can we harness that potential to self-uplift? Yes, you have a shifting. Oh, that's one of my favorite sayings, shifting into another gear. So this is something that we're using it is inner fitness, so I guess it's good to use physical fitness examples. But this is something I heard for the first time around Usain Bolt, the fastest, or was, maybe still is, in my mind, definitely in that league, fastest man in the world, fastest human in the world. When people were watching him race, he certainly had a spring in his step. And, if no one would ever really be close to him, but if they were getting close to him, he seemed to find another extra surge. And so what the reporters, the journalists would call that is, he just found another gear. He just shifted up another gear and woo, he took off. So yes, being able to find another gear. So this word I see here, which I agree with, this word attitude. And there's even many sayings connecting attitude to altitude. So this word attitude, do you feel that attitude has that kind of power to shift our energy? Have you experienced that? Changing your attitude changes your energy. Has anyone experienced that? It has all the power.
Would there be a difference from something when it's natural?
Yeah.
And you have a different kind of attitude when they're younger?
Yeah.
And trying to get that back?
Yeah. I think part of the power of attitude is it has to be, this is our word for the day, by the way, it has to be sincere. I can't fake a shift in attitude and hope to get the benefits. So yes, when we're young, I was just thinking about that because, we've done workshops in the past with teenagers, etc. And they seem to be able, or young adults, they seem to be quite aware of that moment when there was that shift. They had lots of confidence and comfortable with themselves, and their attitudes naturally seem to, and then there seem to be, it's usually, that peer pressure time, right? That loss of innocence. And then they start to develop less confidence, and their attitudes start to be less powerful in their effect. So there does need to be, if you will, a sincerity or authenticity, or we sometimes use the word purity, of the attitude for it really. I can't just sort of say, okay, I know I'm supposed to have this attitude, but we kind of compare it to an iceberg or a glacier where, there's a tiny percentage above the surface, which we call conscious. And that part we're saying, okay, I'm supposed to have an attitude where I really think good about everybody. So, and yet I seem to be moving in the other direction because the bulk of that iceberg is underwater in the subconscious. So my head is kind of into it, but my heart isn't. And so it's not really working. It's not really giving me that energy. I'll feel kind of off or out of kilter, like I'm battling against myself. So instead of that energy going into giving me a spring in my step, it's all going into battling against myself. My heart isn't in it. So we know that attitude is super powerful when it comes to energizing the self. With this conversation, I always think about, and I've shared it before, but this one soul who I had known, and they were just so upbeat. Such a wonderful energy all the time, very upbeat soul. And I don't know why, we must have been chatting, and they shared an experience where, and it was unusual for them because they're usually really, optimistic, as we say, very upbeat. But on this particular occasion, life situations were really pounding them, as we say. Suddenly their father had passed away, and this had happened, and that had happened. Many things sort of piled up, and they started to know their energy starting to go down. And, self-preservation must have kicked in, or they just were missing that energy, that spring. And so they had a little talk with themselves. Yes, and there was on one side this voice saying, yes, it's understandable that you're feeling a little blue. Look at this has happened. But this other side was saying, yeah, but regardless of that, this is a really dangerous place I'm going into. I've got to do something now before this continues. So they just stopped everything, sat themselves on a log. I think it was Newfoundland, so they sat themselves on a log by the beach, and they started to harness something. We'll get to this in a moment. They started to harness something. It was intuitive for them, but they started to think about everyone that they know on the planet. And because they're such a wonderful, happy-go-lucky kind of person, they know lots of people around the world. They started to think about all of them, and they just started sending good wishes to every single one. And they actually healed their attitude, their stage, with that activity. And at the end, they just were springing off, or as they say, back to themselves. And I found that really powerful in many ways. But something interesting happened there. They knew they had to save their attitude. They knew the power of that. But how they did it is fascinating. So close your ears, Hema, because I'm about to speak Hindi. And this may be very painful for you. But maybe I'll type it in the chat box as well. Just so maybe you should say it. So we have this little sing-song thing that we have, which is, as is your snurti, so will be your vritti, as is your vritti, so will be your drishti, as is your drishti, so will be your kriti, as is your kriti, so will be your shrishti. So why don't you say it, Hema? It sounds better when you... I'll type it in the box. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you. And my typing is really bad, so chat amongst yourselves while... and you're thinking, what does this mean? It doesn't work out as well in English, yeah? But we'll translate in a moment. Have a little meditation here. Probably will help me. And again, my spelling isn't great either. So as is your smriti, so will be your vritti. As is your vritti, so will be your drishti. As is your... Oh, that should be drishti, not vritti. As is your drishti, so will be your kriti, our kriti. As is your kriti, so will be your shrishti. Whoa, that wasn't very good typing.
Perfect.
What does this all mean? What does this, and what does it have to do with anything? So vritti loosely translates as attitude. But you'll notice there, and then the attitude you can see shapes your drishti, which means your vision, how you see things. And seeing means many things. We use the word seeing in so many ways when we're trying to understand someone. We'll say, do you understand? We go, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. So it's how I understand things. Seeing is also your perspective. Seeing is your vision. So it's not just physically, looking out through the eyes, but it covers some pretty important activities. So the way I see things is shaped by my attitude. And then how I see things, that vritti should be drishti, that determines how you understand things, determines your behavior, kriti. And it's your behavior, according to the law of karma, that shapes your world, shrishti. So it's quite a powerful, poorly typed, but very powerful concept. But you'll notice that there's something that precedes your attitude, and that's smriti. And smriti, again, translates loosely as a couple of things, awareness and remembrance. And those are very, very connected. So it's kind of a combo feeling to it. They're very connected. So in some ways, when that soul sat themselves down on the bench and started to sort of heal their attitude through these active good wishes, and in fact, they were connecting to their true self. We are intrinsically benevolent. And they were kind of harnessing that awareness of themselves, which was reshaping their attitude and in turn how they see things, how they saw their situation. So this idea of awareness is really even more powerful than attitude and deeply affects attitude. It's quite incognito. We can be holding attitudes and not even aware that they're there. And yet they're so shaping all of these other activities and really defining our energy as a result. So if I can back up to that awareness, it was very interesting. Recently, I was part of this interest. I don't know what I was doing there, but it was a very educational experience, part of this panel. And the panel was about a very loaded issue, very sensitive sort of racial issue. And the people on the panel were very passionate about their positions. And the moderator was, we had connected and were aware of wanting to, if you will, transcend or go beyond it being just a conversation about race and move it into a bigger picture that might actually help the story to move forward. But it was so interesting because you could feel the attitudes that souls had a certain awareness about themselves, and it was very difficult to move into other attitudes given that they were holding this awareness. And I remember the feeling, because when we talk about racial, it's quite physical. And there was a point there when it was like, I just said what I felt was probably going through people's minds. Like, they're probably wondering, what's Judy doing? Like, why is Judy on the back? And so I just sort of, I recognized the elephant in the room. And I said, do you think I'm here because of the color of my skin, or the religious upbringing I had, or is these because it's obvious that people might, that's what the panel's about. And I remember the feeling of, actually, that's not why I think I'm here. I'm here, and that's why I was told I was invited, because of my interest in spirituality. And this real sort of determination, focus on moving into a spiritual awareness. Because I really feel the attitudes that that awareness brings can be quite healing. And so as I was on this panel, talk about energies. Wow. It was really fascinating to me watching different energy. The energy would go into a very heavy place and then trying to bring it lighter, and then it go. And every time we went into limited awarenesses, it started to get very heavy. The energy again got very heavy. And then when we could go into, and it wasn't just me, they would occasionally, mention, God is the father of everyone or something like that. And they would go into this beautiful space, and then it would go back into the Holocaust. And it was just like, and it's not to devalue or to disregard what souls are going through, definitely not. But the purpose of the panel was how to heal. It was called A Journey of Healing. And you could just feel how certain awarenesses or remembrances made things quite heavy and kind of pulled things a bit backwards. And then certain other awarenesses were really shifting things, the energy. So when we talk about smriti, it's what is my awareness of myself? How do I remember myself? What is my awareness of myself? And amazing how those can subtly shape attitudes. Even something simple as, I feel I am a woman. That can really subtly shape attitudes. I feel I am an old woman. That can subtly shape attitudes. And it's not just my own attitudes. Because I'm giving off a vibe, I'm actually shaping other people's attitudes. I had a very bizarre experience growing up. Because yes, I was raised in a household where one parent's in a black body, the other one's in a white body. I'll just be honest with you. No one is really black, and no one's really white. One was sort of brown, the other kind of pink. So, but anyways, that aside. But they had what we call very liberal attitudes. And I don't at all remember in any way, even a trace of anyone identifying anyone that way in the household. And what I found interesting, especially with the mother who was in a dark body, is no one ever saw her that way. I really noticed this. I know that because I never did. No one ever saw her that way. Like, it was just bizarre. The most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And to this day, it's that way. They just do not see her because she's giving off a vibration with her attitude. And it's not that she is in any way rejecting the color of her skin, not at all. She's embracing an awareness of herself as a human being. She's not putting herself into a very limited awareness. So this is the idea of spirituality, is to look at an awareness of ourselves that has very beautiful and energizing attitudes connected to it, especially given the effective attitude in terms of how I see things, my vision, my behavior, and therefore, to the law of karma, what kind of world I'm creating. So it's really powerful, but the awareness is super powerful. So when I have the awareness of myself, then I am a spiritual being. And it's not in any way to do with it's remarkable. These bodies are remarkable. But this sense of, quite frankly, we are even more remarkable than the body, I was reading just as I was coming down here, yet again, there's this beautiful project called the Messiah Complex we were talking about the other day. Well, it was a short-term project. It was so popular that it actually has come back. They've brought it back. It's free. It's not encouraging, just trying to sell it. It's just a very interesting project because it plays with this idea of attitudes and awareness. So Messiah is a very well-known musical piece by Handel. Very beautiful, almost spiritual feelings expressed through music. And it's operatic, choral, opera. So I just want you to take a moment as you sit there to think opera, choral music. And in your mind, what kind of people do you see singing this operatic music? While you're doing that, I'll see if I can find Handel's Messiah for you, just so you can get a sense. But think about, who do you see singing opera? An image must come into your mind. Yes? Is an image coming into your mind? Of who's going to be singing this? I don't know if I can find it. Oh, look, here's some. Oh, we've got some right here. This is perfect. Sorry, I just have to let the ad go by. Just chat amongst yourselves again. Let's see if we can fast forward to some. Okay, good. All right. Oh, sorry. All right, you're going to have to deal with me pretending to be technical again. I hope I just don't close this whole Zoom. All right. Are you ready? Just bear with me. This isn't going to be pretty. I know, I should have a better attitude, right? Okay, here we go. Oh, sorry. That's not what I want to move. I want to move this. See, I told you this was not going to be pretty. Here we go.
Don't mind being tough on it.
Okay. Can you see that? Yes, I haven't started playing it. Okay, here we go. You can see it though? Is it loud enough? It's beautiful music. Guess you don't need me moving to the beat there. Sorry? That was you. Let's see if we can. Oh dear. Okay, we got to stop the share because I'm not sure where I just went. All right. So I don't know what kind of images came up in your mind. Sorry? Oh, that's not what we want. What kind of images came up in your mind? Was that something like that? Oh, we have things in the chat box. Oh, how exciting. Sorry, I'm with you. Predominantly white women being tough on themselves. Sorry. Oh, I love it. All right. Is this called opera music? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself. I'm not sure if this is a good idea. So there you go. That was Handel's Messiah. Nora, did you wish to add to this beautiful mix of wonderful answers?
When you say...
I like the part about being tough on themselves.
I know.
But there is a certain stereotype.
Yeah.
Tends to be males, or it could be females, but it's a certain particular race.
Yeah. So the Handel Messiah, the Messiah Complex, really received incredible reviews. And I did watch portions of it. It's free, available to anyone. The reason it was so intriguing, it's a Canadian production. That's not the intriguing part. But most of the singers are First Nation, male and female. We have beautiful operatic singers from First Nation in this country. And they're singing in their native tongue at times. And they're singing in the beautiful outdoors. They're not in a cathedral like you saw there. They're in these really, like an ice hockey rink, just the context that is their context. And what it does is it smashes attitudes but keeps the essence of that musical piece, which is spiritual experiences. Really great, but it gets one to really look at, wow, that's kind of not what I was expecting. So it's a really fascinating project. And I remember for myself, again, we have so many little attitudes inside we don't even know, but they are shaping our world because they shape our behavior. And I remember once being on a plane, and you go on the plane and the crew announce, well, welcome to so-and-so, and we're your crew today, and your pilot is Pilot Stockton or whatever, and first, what do they call first whatever, so-and-so, and I'm forming these images in my mind as they're saying it, and I'm seeing male crew. And then they said, so the pilot's going to fly over here, and then she'll swing by. Oh, thank you, first officer. Then she'll swing by. And I'm like, she'll swing by? Wow. And at that moment, I realized the strong attitude I had that pilots are going to be male. And it goes on and on. But when we move into a spiritual awareness, then we kind of start to break free of, without having to go at them one by one, because it will take us forever. We don't even know half of them. But it just sort of bulk clears a lot of these attitudes that are actually limiting our energy, our behavior, everything. It kind of bulk clears them and opens us up to connect to very transcending, benevolent, uplifting attitudes that will work in any situation. So I don't need to kind of sit there in an intellectual way and try and shape my attitudes. It will happen very naturally because attitude is shaped by awareness. So it happens very naturally when I move into spiritual awareness. And, I think we sort of see this for little children before they're perhaps taught otherwise, but very young children, we say they're very pure. They have very pure attitudes or innocent attitudes. It's just remarkable, the way that they see things and their behavior. And I remember, back to a plane story, being in the airport, but I was sitting in the waiting room. And it's that situation where, one plane flies in and then they quickly clean it, and then the next group gets on and it's the same plane, they fly out. So the plane that we were going to be boarding arrived, and the passengers that were on it were coming off the plane through the gate. And I'm sitting there watching, and there was a girl, maybe, 8, 10, somewhere in that age range, who came off the plane, but she was skipping off the plane. And I remember watching that and thinking, what would it be like if we all came skipping off the plane? That would be so awesome. Talk about a spring in your step. That would be so awesome, And it's like, yeah, but adults can't skip off the plane. And I'm like, well, why not? Who says adults can't? I mean, maybe physically we can't skip anymore. I can get that. But if we have the capacity to skip, but we're not, why not? I mean, she just was in such a great mood, and she's just bounding up. I'm like, I just have this wonderful image of this herd of adults skipping off the plane. It was so wonderful. And again, just looking at our attitudes that are all there's a gazillion of them. But if I can move my awareness, this idea that we play with of, I am a spiritual being, not just female, this age, this ethnicity. I am much more than that. I am a spiritual being, a soul, who has my profile, my character, the way that you describe me. When we describe something physically, we say, well, she's this age and this height and this gender. But when you describe a soul, it's always qualities. She's kind, she's patient. And yes, what is skipping off the plane? You're gonna make me. You're gonna. Oh dear. No, no, don't apologize, Hema. I'm in too small a space to demonstrate, so Nora's gonna demonstrate. No, Nora can demonstrate. Don't apologize, Hema. I'm so sorry. No, but you can skip. You got a little skipping space there. This is so much fun. All right, so here we go. Nora's going to skip for you. Can you see? We can see. We can see, yes. Do you see that, Hema? She was
Yes,
skipping. Okay.
yes. I cannot see Nora Ben.
Oh, oh.
No, she has to move her screen if she's on her cell phone.
Oh, you have to move. Yeah, you have to swipe so you
Me?
get the gallery view. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. Now can you
yes,
see?
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so she's going to demonstrate again.
Oh,
This,
okay,
this
okay,
is
okay.
skipping. Yeah.
See, this is not my first language. That's what
It's
it
absolutely fine. Sorry about that. So,
Absolutely wonderful.
yeah, can you see an adults doing this off the plane? Very good, yeah? Maybe not Hema right now because of the knee
No,
thing.
we are dragging actually when we are
We're-
getting off the plane. Ah,
So anyways, but this,
wonderful. Thank you.
yes, no problem. That was good. That was good because Nora got to be active physically and she's not for long periods of time. So that was really good. But this idea of spiritual awareness that really breaks through a lot of these hidden attitudes that we don't even know are affecting our energy, dragging ourselves down, because attitudes shape our thinking, our seeing, and we always tend to blame it on what's going on outside and don't realize it's actually my own attitudes that are driving how I think in this situation. So spiritual attitudes, I am a soul, and how do I describe myself? As qualities, peace, love, kindness. Yes, sometimes I'm a very shy soul, I'm a very impatient soul. And at that moment, so it's a bit like the physical body. When the physical body isn't healthy, then it doesn't really operate properly. I just came from a session and every second move the client went, It's just because they're sitting so much. The bodies aren't very healthy right now. So any movement's like, oh. So when it's not healthy, the body operates a little bit oddly. And it's the same for me, the soul. When I'm not healthy, I don't operate in a healthy way as I naturally would. So rather than being patient, because I'm not healthy spiritually, there's impatience, etc. And so a spiritual practice can be very healing for the soul. But when we describe a soul, we don't say they're this color or that age or that. We just say, well, they're peaceful, pure, light, etc. And those are cross-cultural, cross-temporal. They have nothing to do with any particular gender or race. It's just universal quality. So you can imagine how this will redefine our attitudes. We want to, because, in our hearts as spiritual beings, our hearts are actually built to be benevolent. And it probably the thing that disturbs us the most is when we're not able to honor our heart. But when our attitudes are a certain way, it's very difficult to honor that natural benevolence. But when we do, this puts such a spring into our step. So back to our story at the beginning, the soul who sat himself on the bench started to send these beautiful thoughts to everyone they knew. They were in a way, without knowing it, moving into a spiritual awareness and expressing the natural nature of the soul, of ourselves as spiritual beings, which is to be benevolent. And it was such a healthy, energizing thing to do that despite all of these crazy things happening around them, they knew the attitude was shaped internally. Not externally by the events, but internally. And by working with that, they could give themselves a different energy to move forward. So I always find a very powerful story. So I'm going to stop there. I'm looking at the time, just checking in. if anyone else wants to share anything of their experiences before we end with a short reflection. Thank you so much for joining. Is it Leah? Is that right? What happens at 4? Ah, yes, that's on YouTube. So 4 to 5, the young adults of the BK Center do these self-care sessions. They're an hour long. It's quite amazing. So you would have to go to our YouTube, which is just BK Calgary. I'll type it here. Well, now you're not going to trust my typing because it's crazy, yeah? So BK Calgary, if you go to YouTube and just search for BK Calgary, it will, yeah, find the logo, this logo. Let me show you the logo. Find that
Lotus.
Yeah.
The purity.
Yeah, and self-care, 4 o'clock. I'm afraid I don't know what the theme is today, but these young adults are just remarkable, the preparation. Oh, a Zoom session link. Oh, then I don't think there's something on Zoom at 4. Is there something on Zoom? No. There was something at 12. And that will be uploaded to YouTube. I hope that's not. But at 4, there is on our YouTube. But I don't think there's anything on Zoom. Oh, the Eventbrite link. Oh, so sorry, Neil. Yeah, I'm getting props here from. What you might have gotten was the registration link for the 4 o'clock session. Oh, yes. Okay. So it will direct you to YouTube. It should, but if it does not, you now know how to get there. Just type YouTube into the search engine, search for BK Calgary, that Lotus, and you will see it live. You will be joining. If you join at 4, it's real time, but we always upload the recordings as well if you miss it. So, great. So, shall we? I'm sorry, Nora was going to share something, I think, yeah.
Sorry, I just remember how meaningful it was for me coming into the study, because way before the study, probably 10 years before the study, I always asked the question, what comes first? These neurotransmitter chemicals that make you happy, or is it you being happy? And I think the question is always about, I think many people feel that way, working with clients who have to take medications for depression and stuff. I can see why they don't want to. They don't want to feel like they're feeling a certain way because of the medication. Yeah. But of course, there's a fine line that they need. Not to digress, but the reason why I was sharing is because when you were talking about this whole spring into your step, because I've worked with quite a few young ones, they walk on their toes.
Yeah, they're toe walkers, right? Yeah.
Which is interesting. And then I was working with a coworker. I think she's about 22 at the time, quite young compared to everyone else I work with. She says, yeah, I walk on my toes too, and I do it all the time. And it was just interesting because in this study you learn that you're a soul, that you actually probably take over more of your body than you realize. Yeah. And if you start to lose your sense of self, that even affects even your movement. So I know like neuroscience has a different idea of how that works, but which I think is only a part of the understanding.
It's such a good point, because many are concerned that when we say you're a soul, that we're actually neglecting the body, but actually we're enhancing how we care for the body when we move into that sort of trusty relationship with it as a soul. And yes, I knew a toe walker. I think you knew this. It was the accountant where I worked, Lisa, and I just enjoyed it so much. Her energy, she kind of went toe walking. And many are told, yeah, no, they told me to stop walking on my toes. I'm like, really? Why? So toe walking.
So what is relation here?
Between toe walking and this session?
So like probably when you are light from inside, then that's when you can walk on your toe. That's what it means? Or
there's a few different theories. It's seen in children, young children. There's a few different theories why they're toe walkers. Of course, our theory is that the soul is so inside, it's so light that it's just literally lifting the body up on this very light. But also they're so little and they're often holding hands, so they have to kind of be on their toes to keep up, if you will. But it seems very natural. They just have the spring in their step.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Okay.
what's interesting from fitness perspective is that they have discovered that toe running is better mechanically. It's hard for most souls because they can't switch to it at that late stage in life. But I remember being out once in Calgary and driving the car, and they often wear those special sock shoes, and there was a young man who was literally just toe running through Calgary on the streets. And I'll never forget, I started in one place downtown and I had to get across the river to another place downtown. So I'm driving and I have to stop for lights, of course, but I'm in a car. And when I arrived at my destination, that runner went running by. It was, it's an extremely efficient and light way to run, but it's very hard for adult learners to do at that point because they've changed their mechanics. But it's just super light. So again, I wonder if, little children are a little bit more spiritually aware. And so how they use the body is a bit, if you will, more healthy. So interesting to reflect
Very
on.
interesting, yeah.
But also, I just wanted to touch on Nora's point that absolutely there are often biochemical reasons that we can't ignore for different experiences souls are happening, whether it's depression, but it's very fascinating.
So what is that depression? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Just in terms of neurotransmitters, depending on what theory you embrace, but often there is, for depression or different disorders, there can be biochemical issues. It's not just a case of feel better. So we have to be aware. But I know that I have met souls who are very aware, they are taking medication, they're very aware of the biochemical factor and what they're experiencing, but they still, it just inspires me so much, they still will work on their attitudes and their awareness. Even in the context of having these biochemical things going on, they still, and that's a very powerful power. I think they're often further ahead of the game, actually, because they really, it's just remarkable. So very interesting to explore even deeper than the power of thoughts, the power of attitudes and awareness.
Like my experience is kind of I relate like if I meet somebody first time and her name is Judy, and the person with the name Judy I meet first time, and I don't know what gets registered into my mind, I don't know, but then every time, even if I heard someone else's name Judy, I always relate Judy's first personality to the other Judys, right? And I don't know, many times it's pretty like not 100%, but I see some similarity. Like say for example, name Caroline, then in Indian name Deepa, some few names I don't know, have very strong I relate the characteristics and the energy, and it has nothing to do with the name and all. It's just like what you are saying, it's an attitude, right? That's a very subtle attitude we form, like so
absolutely.
then,
No, it's
like when I see, if I see Judy, like I met Judy first time, I heard the name first time Judy, and she's very peaceful, very loving, very, very light and all. And then even without seeing another Judy, I just start imagining that, okay, that Judy might be of a similar, like, it's just like, I don't have to put any effort. It's just, it automatically comes, the visualization that this is how she should be. But I don't know why it's happening. It's very strange.
No,
isn't
it's a really, really great example, which I think we all have experienced, where, we talk to someone over the phone and they go, my name is Thor. So when I meet them, I'm expecting something. So I'm not actually meeting them for the first time.
No,
because I'm not coming with a clean attitude. It's
so
already
true.
preformed, right? Because
Yeah.
of these limited awarenesses around Thor, right? So it's really very, very interesting to come with such a pure attitude is a rare.
Yeah, even like I mean, I don't want to, I mean, it's not that that's what I feel from inside, but some certain religion practitioner, right? Like certain, right? So then if I see that, okay, this person belongs to that religion, then automatically all these like halo effect, right? So these the people who are believing in this religion, they are like this. It's where like it automatically comes. And I mean, I'm really trying to change that this is, I really don't want to go with my limited attitude with anyone or anything, right? But I mean, I always find it very, very strange that how it happens, right?
Yeah, no, and I see that Leah had just put, yes, it's unconscious biases. That's exactly what it is. Like pilots are male, this is exactly what it is. And so, again, it's impossible to go at them one by one. So first step is awareness. So Hema is aware. So already there. Just reading what Leah's sharing, absolutely. So that awareness is first step, to be aware of what's going on inside the self. And this is such a huge part of fitness, actually, is awareness is the first step. Absolutely.
And sometimes you depend.
Self.
And sometimes you depend like some certain scenario, right? And I don't know why. I know what's going to happen on a next moment. It's just, I don't know. It's just Baba is saying that 5,000 years cycle and it just repeats and all. It could be that one, but that also I find it very strange. And sometimes I said, I don't want to know that. I don't want to feel that. But exactly, sometimes it happens the exactly same way I had thought of. It's just like in a fraction of a second and say, aha, that's what I thought and that's what had happened. I don't know. It's just I'm invoking, or is it?
No, well, it could be, but I think in general, when we work with spiritual awareness, because it's such a subtle thing, it sort of sharpens our subtle capacities. So I think people do start to find, when they spend more time quietly, reflectively, checking themselves, refining these subtleties in the self, that they just start to be more sensitive to subtleties around them and can kind of, you know, get a sense of, I think things are going to go in this direction. And it's actually a very natural thing. We just spend so much time more on the outer, you know, we're not really in those subtle frames of mind. So that particular capacity isn't very sharp anymore. But again, anything can come back if we just practice.
And certain thing, like sometimes something has to be said right way, right? I mean, in like some time back, like I used to say whatever comes to my mind if I have to ask someone or if I have to say something. So I used to do that instantly. But now there is a voice from inside. It's saying, no, not this is not a right time. This is not a right time. This is not a right time. And you won't believe that at a very right, precise moment, the things comes from my mouth and it is exactly true and it's accurate that, oh yeah. And the responses are absolutely amazing. But like, this was not happening earlier. Like, I mean, you say something and then the response from the other side, or the receptiveness of whatever you are saying from the other side, it was not in a right manner. But now it's very, very different. Like, I mean, you tell yourself that, no, this is not a right time to say, this is not right time to share, this is not right time. That's all I know. And automatically right time comes and I don't know. And everything just fall in such a nicer place. There is no aggression, there is no rejection, there is no bad feeling at all. And things get done, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful segue into as we close, kind of thinking about this soul. So this soul behind me is Dadi Gulzar, and she was, up until March 11th, spiritual head of the Brahma Kumaris, the organization that's hosting this session. And then she is, we say, transitioned, or I think we often say passed away on March 11th, but she was a master of timing, and what we might call mature attitudes, maturity. And maturity does involve timing. It also, maturity is a state where you protect, we say, reputation or value, dignity of others. This is maturity. And so it's very sensitive to what sort of the subtle energies, what's going on, where people are at, very sensitive of reading a situation. And it's not intellectual. It again, I think, comes naturally from what was the main part of the soul's life, spending time in spiritual awareness. I think it just comes naturally. It all comes back. So many different places we can always go off on these conversations. Yeah. So we have -7 minutes for our reflection. That's great. So we'll just take a moment, just a few thoughts to finish up, so that Leah can make it on time to the 4 o'clock session. So again, sitting comfortably and realizing perhaps the most interesting place to explore attitudes is the attitudes I have towards myself. I can have so many limiting attitudes towards myself without even knowing it. And what happens when I go into a different awareness? How can that liberate me very naturally from limiting attitudes? The awareness that I am a soul, a spiritual being, and that concentrated within me are so many beautiful qualities, the inner beauty of the self. And that as I move through time, and I forget myself, I forget I'm a soul. Yes, I begin to act, behave, interact in very different ways that might even go against my own values. At those moments, do I still have faith in myself? Do I have a forgiving attitude, understanding attitude? Really checking the attitudes I have towards myself and seeing how a spiritual awareness can reshape those attitudes. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining. And next week, very exciting, it's creating a program for yourself. You can think about that, I guess. All right, until next
Om Shanti, Judy Ben, Nora Ben, thank you.
Om Shanti. Thank you for joining today.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Shanti.